In Las Vegas, Marcus, a 31-year-old man, was struggling to stay afloat, moving from one apartment to another, working odd jobs here and there. He wasn't a criminal, at least, not yet, but he wasn't exactly the picture of stability either. He had mood swings that were all over the place, like a roller coaster that just couldn't stay on track. One night, something inside him snapped. No one knows exactly what triggered it. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe it was a bad trip. Or maybe it was years of frustration finally boiling over. But what is known is that around 8 p.m., Marcus left his apartment, walked down the Las Vegas Strip, and by 8:45, he had pulled a gun on a complete stranger near a convenience store. The stranger hadn't said anything threatening. Marcus just looked at him, mumbled something about them watching him, pulled out a gun and fired. Thankfully, the stranger wasn't hit and managed to run away, flagging down a nearby officer in panic. The officer radioed for backup, got into his car, and began scanning the area. A few minutes later, he spotted Marcus near a bus stop. The officer approached calmly, saying something like, "Sir, I need to talk to you." But Marcus didn't respond. He just stared at the officer, and then, without warning, opened fire. One bullet grazed the officer's head, and another hit his vest. The officer was knocked down, dazed but alive. A second officer pulled up just in time to see Marcus running with his gun still drawn. Marcus turned and fired again. The second officer was hit in the shoulder of his uniform, but miraculously, the bullet didn't pierce the skin. Chaos erupted. Sirens screamed. Marcus disappeared into a maze of alleyways before running into an apartment complex down the street. There was a unit on the second floor of the building where some college kids were just watching TV. Before they knew it, Marcus kicked down the door like something straight out of an action movie. The college students froze in terror. He waved the gun at them and shouted, "Nobody move." They didn't. He forced them into a corner, flipped over the couch, dragged a bookcase in front of the door, and shouted something about needing time and how they are not gonna take him alive. Outside, the building was surrounded. SWAT teams were called in, evacuation orders were issued, and officers banged on every door, urging people to get out. Helicopters hovered overhead, and cameras began rolling. Inside, Marcus paced back and forth with a gun in his hand, his mind racing with thoughts. An hour passed. Then, two negotiators arrived, and with a bullhorn, they began trying to talk him down. "Marcus, we want to talk to you. We don't want anyone to get hurt." But Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he fired a few shots into the ceiling, maybe to scare the negotiators, maybe to feel like he was still in control. The two hostages sat frozen, hoping for a chance to escape. Finally, Marcus stepped into the kitchen to get a glass of water. The hostages, seizing the opportunity, opened a back window, crawled out, and ran for their lives. With the hostages now free, you might think that the police would rush in. But they didn't. They knew Marcus still had a weapon, and they didn't want to risk anyone else getting hurt. So the standoff dragged on. 3 hours. 4. Then 5. Then, in an unexpected twist, Marcus found a phone in the apartment and started calling news stations. He claimed to be the brother-in-law of Snoop Dogg and demanded to speak with him. Here's where things get weird. Marcus's sister, Sherry, had married one of Snoop Dogg's cousins a few years earlier, making him a distant in-law to the rapper. But Marcus, believing that his distant family connection to Snoop could get him out of this situation, was convinced that Snoop would pick up the phone and bail him out. The news reached the Vegas PD, who contacted the Lapt. At around 3 a.m., police officers knocked on Snoop Dogg's front door in Los Angeles. Snoop, probably still groggy from sleep, answered the door. Mr. Dogg," an officer said, "your cousin-in-law is holding people hostage in Vegas and wants to speak to you." Snoop blinked in disbelief and said, "For real?" Without missing a beat, Snoop recorded an audio message and sent it to the police. In the message, he told Marcus to chill out and let the police handle the situation. "We got lawyers. Don't do anything stupid." The police played the tape over a loudspeaker outside the apartment, but there was no response from Marcus. By now, the sun was starting to rise, and it had been nearly 10 hours since the standoff began. Marcus was still inside, still armed, still not talking. And then, To add another layer of weirdness to this already bizarre situation, someone online started spreading the rumor that Marcus was the guy who created the Peanut Butter Jelly Time song. You know, the one with the catchy lyrics. Musical note, it's Peanut Butter Jelly Time. Peanut Butter Jelly Time. Musical note. The meme had gone viral in the early 2000s, appearing on forums, animated GIFs, and even Family Guy. But here's the thing. Marcus had nothing to do with that song. He didn't write it, produce it, or sing it. He just happened to be related to Snoop Dogg and mentally unstable enough to take hostages. But that didn't matter online. The rumor spread like wildfire, and suddenly, Marcus wasn't just a gunman. He was now the Peanut Butter Jelly Time guy. At nearly 10 a.m., after almost 12 hours of negotiations, the SWAT team finally got the go-ahead. They had had enough. They moved in fast. First floor, nothing. Second floor, empty. They reached the apartment, and although the door was barricaded with furniture, they rammed through it with shields up and weapons drawn. But when they got inside, Marcus wasn't where they expected. The main room was empty, but they could hear faint sounds coming from the bathroom. A shuffle, maybe even a whisper. Then, without warning, gunshots rang out. The officers froze. They couldn't see who was in the bathroom, so they didn't shoot blindly. Instead, they carefully moved to a window, threw in a flashbang to disorient Marcus, and followed it up with tear gas. The room filled with smoke, and they waited. Finally, they kicked down the bathroom door, and there he was. Marcus was lying on the floor, the gun still next to his hand. He wasn't breathing. The standoff was over. Marcus had chosen to end it on his own terms. He didn't want to surrender. He didn't want to face what was coming next. And in the end, he made sure no one else could decide his fate. Afterwards, the internet went wild. Did the peanut butter jelly guy shoot up Vegas? Why did Snoop Dogg's cousin take hostages? None of it made sense. None of it was true. But people didn't care. They took the story and ran with it. As for the real Marcus, he was a troubled man who made a horrible decision and dragged a bunch of innocent people into his meltdown. He didn't need Snoop. He needed help. But by the time anyone realized that, it was too late. So yeah, next time someone mentions Peanut Butter Jelly Time, just remember, that catchy song has nothing to do with a 12-hour Vegas standoff, a busted door in LA, or a cousin who thought a rapper could save him from his own madness. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment with your favorite line from this story. We'll see you in the next one.